how do you think the new administration will improve access to funding for small businesses and entrepreneurs? And then the big one, how do you see interest rates potentially moving?
I think the most successful people, they are colorblind. They don't see red tape, right?
Yeah,
They just keep pushing through or they pivot or whatever.
yeah,
They run into a roadblock, whether it be political or anything, they pivot and they
yeah.
figure it out.
Do you think the new administration will open up new markets and opportunities for small businesses potentially?
I see that when I lived in Vancouver too, because I think the tax rate, if I remember in Vancouver, was 30 or 40% too.
Right.
But the only thing that really blew my mind is they had a sin tax on
What's
cig.
that?
Nothing's free.
No.
Zero is free in
Yeah,
life.
right.
You're paying for it somewhere. I don't give a shit for
So
it.
true.
You're paying for it. If somebody says something's free, I just immediately run out the door
Even,
because I'm
even
like, shit, something's up. Guys, if you haven't checked us out on Spotify or YouTube, check us out. The link below. Deal us in the new podcast.
welcome back. And hot topic this week is obviously in the US we have a new administration in place and a new president as from January 20th, 2025. And a lot of entrepreneurs and small businesses have been exchanging ideas and wondering, how is this going to impact our small business as an entrepreneur? So that's what we're discussing.
We have no political position in what we talk about. This is our own ideas, beliefs, whatnot. It's nothing that's, we're saying that you should believe this or not believe this, but it's just our beliefs that what we think is happening in the world today and what we see, because we obviously talk to quite a few entrepreneurs. Everybody's all over the place when it comes to decisions or facts or fiction or whatever, but sometimes it's just fun to even watch. I mean,
Yeah.
we were just having this conversation. It's fun just to see some things that are going down right now that is one hysterical and two need to be done.
Hysterical, yeah. So, tax reform. How do you think the changes in tax policy potentially are going to affect entrepreneurs and small businesses like ours?
Well, I hope to God that in real estate business, there's no taxes anymore. That would be great, right? I think this is an ongoing thing that's been going on for years and years. And I can remember as a kid, my dad used to bitch about this because we owned businesses for forever when I was a kid. And I remember every time tax season came around, and I didn't really understand what was going on, but it was always chaotic around my house tax season, man, because my dad was always worried. But then this was back when I learned about how you can delay your taxes. I remember at my kitchen table one time, my dad, he's like, "Oh, I got to." This is when I kind of started understanding a little bit about the taxes and shit like this. And my dad was like, "Oh, I need to get my taxes done." I'm like, "Dad, it's freaking November of the following year. What do you mean taxes?" Like someone's gonna be knocking on our door, a tax guy's gonna be coming to get us, and yeah, it's something that's always going to be out there. I think every administration is always like, we're going to lower this tax, or lower this tax, or we're going to do this, do that. I think it's something you're never going to get away from.
Hmm.
And to be honest with you, I think over the last like 20 years, probably 10 of these have been quite successful, and I really don't see a difference
Hmm.
when I always talk about this when I was coming up is, man, I can't wait to make 30, 40,000. When I came out of college, I was making 30 or 40,000, 30 grand, I think, for my first job. And I was like, yeah, man, I got so much money, dude. I'm like pumped. And then I can't wait to get to $60,000. And then I get to $60,000. And then what do you have at $60,000? You have more cars, you have more shoes, you have more shit, but you have the same amount of money.
Yeah.
And taxes is still the same. You still have much more taxes. But Florida is great because when I moved from Tennessee to Florida, I got a tax benefit because there's no state income tax here,
Yeah.
no city taxes or nothing. So it was great. But other than that, I don't really see a big difference in the tax reform making one society or one class go either better direction. I mean, everybody talks about the rich are going to like get richer. I mean, that's because they have successful businesses
Hmm.
and they keep pushing and they more innovative and more ego driven.
Hmm.
I think that's the reason. If you ask me,
Yeah.
that's the reason. Not because they're getting break on taxes. Hell, we could get a break on tax. You have to work the system.
Yeah.
You have to just work the system. It's
Right.
it's meant to.
Yeah, I see that from a little bit of a different perspective because I worked for years in Europe before I moved to the US, and I lived in the UK, and then I lived in France, and I experienced extremely high taxes in both countries. Now, the UK taxed, when I was working there, taxed at the source. So you didn't have to, do a tax declaration every year. It was tax at source, and what you were paid into your bank account already had the taxes taken out of it. So that was a big difference for me when I moved to France to work because there it wasn't taxed at source and you did have to do your tax declaration every year. However, in order to get to a high tax rate of like 45, 50%, half of what you're earning, it was a very low tax bracket compared to the US and still is.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess the theory behind that is that, you have in the UK what's considered free healthcare, for
Hmm.
example, and that in itself has a lot of challenges that I saw, directly when my mum had breast cancer and she was in hospital, and the way she was treated was horrific.
Hmm.
And the waiting lists and so on, people dying waiting for surgery. So, I guess I just come from a different perspective on that. And I'm not really sure how it's going to affect us as entrepreneurs and small businesses. I think, everybody's sort of waiting with bated breath, and we're all hoping that, our tax rates will go down, but it
I
remains to be
I
seen,
did
right?
see that when I lived in Vancouver too, because I think the tax rate, if I remember, in Vancouver was 30 or 40% too.
Right.
But the only thing that really blew my mind is they had a sin tax on
What's that?
cigarettes and vodka or alcohol. You had to pay an extra, I think, 15 or 20%
And
on
they call
top of whatever it
the
was.
name was a sin tax,
Sin
as in
tax.
it's a
Yeah,
sin.
I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day that was complaining about something. Oh, somebody was complaining about taxes or something, and obviously I don't drink. I don't drink that much anymore, and I've never smoked. And it was a smoker, and I said, well, just wait till that sin tax comes because we talk about 20 or 30%. So that's how we're going to bring the tax. Guys, here's how we bring the taxes down. We don't put more on personal tax. We for sin tax.
Ah, interesting. Okay. And now you hard barely drink, and I really don't drink,
Right.
so and we
And
don't smoke.
that's the only way I can say that.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm politically running in 2028.
Oh no.
Nah, kidding. Don't want my background being all shuffled up.
How do you think the new administration will improve access to funding for small businesses and entrepreneurs? And then the big one, how do you see interest rates potentially moving?
Funding is not going to change. I just know because obviously I've spent 20 years in the banking world. People don't know me. Actually, I worked a little bit for the FDIC there, helped shut a couple banks down. Funding is always going to be a strain because the government is on top of these banks for excess capital day in and day out. I think it used to be 6 or 7%. Now it's like 9%, which is very excessive for a bank to hold in reserve. Because the charge off rate in a bank is like 0.1%. It's like pretty much nothing.
Hmm.
So this money sitting there is not being worked and it's just sitting there, right? And it goes back to personally, right? If we have money in the bank or money sitting in the bank, it's not working. Some of the most successful people out there don't have any money in the bank. And I know quite a few people out there that have zero money in the bank, but are multimillionaires.
It's all asset
I
driven.
look at it as being bad, but actually it's not.
Yeah.
Because you're growing. But yeah, um, there's not, it's going to be the same. I mean, I can't see that changing. Interest rates, I have a mixed review on this because I worked back in the banking career back for 18 years. I sold 7, 8% interest rates day in and day out. I mean, we as the consumer have gotten so used to 3% interest rates and 4% interest rates. And guess what? That was only a short period of window over the last 20 years. If you look back on it, I think it was only like 4 or 5 years
Yeah.
that we had those interest rates. Before that, it was 7, 8, 9% interest rates.
So we were spoiled then.
We were spoiled. And now it's back to normal. And now look at us. We're freaking out,
Mm,
you know? So I think, that's always going to be out there,
mm.
you know.
Do you think we're freaking out because the cost of living has dramatically increased, over the past few years? And so, those difference in interest rates, makes it even more apparent for people.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. I think, because when I look at I don't really eat a lot of food. It's just me. And so my chicken, eggs, and,
And your
normal
cat,
basic stuff.
and don't forget about
And
Kiki.
Kiki, man, if y'all make cat food go up anymore, damn it, Kiki, you better find a new home, girl.
Oh, I'll take her.
No, it's the cost of living, man. It's outrageous because of that, I think. So
Yeah. Um, so what do you think about the Trump administration and the way it will influence investor confidence in small businesses?
I think we already see it. It's driving the investor, obviously in the commercial, we're in the commercial, and I mean, we're overloaded with people coming off the sidelines now, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's two things to that. I think one is just change, whether it's Trump or whether it's anybody else. People see change and they think, all right, it's time to make a move, right?
Mm-hmm.
And another thing is, I just think confidence, right? They see that there's a more confident person in office, and I think then they're like, let's make a move, right?
Right.
So I think it's a little mixed bag of confidence and also, maybe he will change some things. But yeah, we're seeing a lot of investors, man, that are just like ready and coming off the sidelines now.
Do you think the new administration will open up new markets and opportunities for small businesses potentially?
Absolutely. I think it's going to close some down, but I think it's going to open some up
Okay.
because what you're going to see is a lot of international exchanges. Yeah, we might lose, and this is just my opinion. It's not a political and it's not a like belief or anything, but from what I see, I think, he might shut down some of the Chinese and the things that we've been doing overseas or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
You can't you can't at all 100% because it's so cheap. The labor's so cheap, the cost is so cheap. But what it will do is shut a little bit of that down. It's going to help the American company grow
Yeah.
with adding more revenue, growing the economy more, or whatnot. So I think it's kind of hand in hand there.
And I mean, I agree with you. Do you think can you think of any specific initiatives that you would be hopeful that the new administration might put into place to help entrepreneurs and small businesses and give them a boost?
It's a great question. I mean, $750, I think, when everything goes, that's great. $750 is going to help me a lot. No, it's not. Yeah, we do shit. Yeah, I mean, I can't really think of any initiative right off the top of my head that would help me.
What about like
But
SBA loans and things like that for small businesses? Do you think that there's enough opportunity for startups in terms of SBA loans, or
some,
is there some sort of work or initiatives that could be done on that side of things?
I have a great concept on this because there's never going to be enough initiative, and there's never going to be enough for startup companies
Hmm.
because there's not help out there.
Right.
I can tell you because I worked on this side in Canada and I worked on this side in the US.
Hmm.
And, God bless my Canadian people that are watching this, but um, Canada, when I was there and I was actually involved in doing a startup in Canada, you could go into the government official's office and they would literally help you hand over fist, right?
Yeah.
And really help you try to understand what's going on, how to start, blah, blah, blah. Here in the US, where do you go? I mean,
Mm,
we see it day in and day out. And people come to us all the time and they're like, "Hey, where do you start?" The one good thing is we've started is it's called Score. And if you're an entrepreneur out there and a business owner and you're starting out and don't know where to go, Score, SCORE, is a great organization here, and it's ex CEOs, CFOs, and CPAs that actually volunteer, and you go in there and you sit down with them and you start a business plan. You start looking at kind of what you're trying to do, where to start, how to start, and
mm.
then how to make the company grow. And it's a great thing, but there's not enough here
Right.
that
So
I see.
so maybe some more initiatives to really help startups get the help they need. And that's a huge difference to what I saw in Europe, and particularly France. There was a lot of free help if you wanted to start a
Hmm.
business, in terms of, you know, there are offices, government offices that you could go into, make an appointment. You would have somebody review your business plan, help you put a budget to it,
Hmm.
figure out, your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, all of that, and really sit down with you. The problem with France, and to an extent, the rest of Europe, was that there was so much administrative red tape to then get the business actually off the ground.
Hmm.
Number one.
Hmm.
And then number two was, anytime you wanted to employ somebody in your business, it cost you a fortune. And it was very, very expensive to have employees because of all of the labor
Hmm.
regulations. So, where you got the help in the theoretical phase, the practical phase of actually taking that business to market was very, very
Hmm.
challenging. And so, what it seems like to me in the US, having done it myself, is that the practical going to market aspect is definitely easier than I saw in Europe.
Hmm.
There's no doubt, and it's the American dream, right? That I'm basically living myself right now. But maybe you don't get as much help on the theoretical, side of things, and that would be nice to see from the Trump administration,
I
right?
mean, I think the most successful people, they are colorblind. They don't see red tape, right?
Yeah,
They just keep pushing through, or they pivot or whatever.
yeah,
They run into a roadblock, whether it be political or anything, they pivot and they
yeah.
figure it out. So,
You're right in that sense. In Europe, it can become impossible to launch a business, and literally impossible because
mm,
of the red tape.
nothing's free.
No,
Zero is free in
yeah,
life.
right.
You're paying for it somewhere. I don't give a shit
So
where.
true.
You're paying for it. If somebody says something's free, I just immediately run out the door.
Even
'Cause I'm
even
like, shit, something's up.
if you're starting or running a business, even as even if it's not monetary
Yeah,
expense, it's usually expense in your mental health, right?
yeah, that's true.
What are the top priorities for our business in the coming years, considering the potential impacts of the new administration?
You wanna start this? Well, let me grab this list here.
I know it's a long list. I don't know. Maybe we
Yeah,
just keep it succinct, but
yeah. I mean, I think um, everybody has things that all entrepreneurs have to sit down and see. Okay, what happened last year? What were we good at? What were we not good at? Where could we improve, where we can pivot and do something a little bit differently. And I mean, we're already doing that, right? We have,
yeah,
pivoted in courses, pivoted in YouTube, pivoted in Spotify. We're doing other things to come. So, I mean,
yeah. I have a list
it's,
of about 100 things. It's just a
yeah.
matter of prioritizing them. But I think that's a key point as well, is that we are always learning and we're
Hmm.
always open to learning new things. And then it's about figuring out, how does this fit into the overall strategy of what we're trying to do,
Hmm.
and how can we implement that?
Yeah.
And yeah, we have a long list, so we won't go through that right
What
now.
is it going to bring to your brand? I mean, what is it going to help you do to overall bring more value to what you do as a service or sell a product or whatnot?
Yeah.
Is this something going to be add to you? I'll tell you, a great company, and this just came out of the top of mine is Apple.
Hmm.
I was just watching the video on Apple the other day. Apple does a really great job of taking something and keep adding to it.
Yeah.
And if you've ever noticed about that, shit, Apple's got everything now. I just literally was going to buy a voice recorder for my phone, And I was like, you know what? I bet Apple's got an app for this. Sure
Yeah,
enough, shit.
they're the experts
They,
at
yeah,
cross and upselling, right?
yeah.
They cross and upsell like crazy. Whether it's adapters, whether it's, um, add-ons, software, hardware, whatever it is. Yeah, you're right.
Cross-selling, upselling is where it's at. I
Yeah,
mean, go to the bank. I mean, I just saw um, another bank thing the other day on TV. Is like, come to us for a credit card, come to us for a car loan, come to us for auto loan.
yeah,
And I mean, my application for where I buy crypto now, I literally just saw now I can buy stocks on this phone. I can buy crypto on the phone, EFTs, and then do day trading.
yeah.
And they gave me a credit card.
Oh no,
So literally,
you're gonna have no
no, it's
money
like
left at the end of
it's
the
a
month.
debit card.
Oh
So
no.
every money
Yeah,
I make, I can put on my debit card and spend it if I want to.
yeah.
So they've got me in this one application, which is
Nice.
kind of scary actually, because now you've got all your eggs in one basket, as my mentors used to always say.
Yeah,
Don't put all your eggs in one basket,
yeah.
but it makes it easy. It's
Right.
efficient. And it goes back to I just saw a commercial this morning that said what was it? 80% of the people want the efficiency in something more than they want anything else.
Yeah, I mean, it's the instant gratification
Yeah.
generation. They want it efficient, easy, and
Now.
as fast as humanly
Yeah.
possible.
True.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thanks for all the insights on the new administration. We'll see how 2025 pans out. I think it's a good outlook, and remains to be seen how the year pans out. But thanks for joining us. We've got some exciting episodes coming up. James is going to be interviewing a couple of very prominent CEOs of small businesses, and we look forward to getting their insights on what's made them successful and, the challenges that they've overcome, right, James?
I love it. Guys, watch us on Spotify, YouTube, like us, comment, keep it going, guys. We love doing this for you. So help us out and like it and respond.
And subscribe. Thanks, guys.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Guys, have you ever checked us out on Spotify or YouTube? Check us out, the link below. Deal us in the new podcast.